Have you ever stopped to think about why we do what we're told? I mean, really. When a police officer tells you to move along or a sign tells you the speed limit, what makes that command any different from some random person's opinion? Okay, let's get right into it because the answer is way less obvious than you might think. We're going to explore the surprisingly tricky philosophy behind legal authority.
All right, picture this. It's 3 in the morning, you're the only motorist on the road, not a single headlight in sight. You pull up to a red light. From a purely practical safety point of view, there is absolutely no reason to stop. And yet, most of us do. We just stop. Why? What is it about that glowing red light that has such a grip on us? Well, that simple little moment holds the key to a huge philosophical puzzle.
So here's our game plan for figuring this out. First, we're going to tackle something called the authority paradox. Then, we'll meet the philosopher who came up with a really elegant solution to it. After that, we'll dig into the clever trick that makes authority actually work in our day-to-day lives. And finally, we'll look at the massive, high-stakes debate this all creates between law and morality.
All right, so first things first, let's tackle the central problem head-on. On the surface, just blindly following rules can seem, well, completely irrational, can't it? Philosophers have been wrestling with this for ages, and they've even given it a name, the authority paradox.
Here's the core idea of the paradox. It's never actually rational to do something just because an authority tells you to. Now I know, that sounds pretty extreme, right? But stick with me because the logic behind it is surprisingly simple and pretty powerful.
Let's break this little trap down. Think about it. If the law tells you to do something that's already the right thing to do, like, say, don't steal, then the law is kind of pointless, isn't it? You already have a perfectly good reason not to steal. But on the flip side, if the authority tells you to do something that's wrong, then you obviously shouldn't do it. So in either case, the command itself seems to add nothing. It looks like you should just ignore the authority and focus on doing what's right. So what gives? Are we all just being irrational?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Enter the brilliant legal philosopher Joseph Raz. He looked at this whole paradox and basically said, hold on, everybody. You're thinking about this completely backwards. It's not about blind obedience. It's about something he called the service conception.
This one idea just reframes the entire problem. Think about your doctor, right? You don't follow their advice because they're ordering you around. You follow it because that doctor has years of specialized training and expertise that you, the patient, just don't have. Their authority isn't about power, it's a service. It serves your own interest in getting better.
And that brings us to the core of his idea. The service conception says that following an authority is totally rational as long as that authority helps you make better decisions than you could make on your own. Essentially, the authority is like a super knowledgeable expert helping you navigate a complicated world.
So the crucial point here is that Raz gives us a test. He calls it the normal justification thesis. An authority is legitimate for you if and only if you're more likely to get things right by following their lead than by just, winging it. This goes for your doctor, your mechanic, and, as we're about to see, for the law itself.
Okay, so authority is rational because it's like having an expert on call. That makes sense. But how does that service actually work? How does a legal rule take our incredibly messy lives and make them simpler? Let's look at the really clever mechanism behind it all. The idea of exclusionary reasons. Just look at this. As a pedestrian, if you had to decide when to cross a busy street, you'd be wearing a dozen different things at once. But the law, acting as an authority, does all that complicated math for everyone and just boils it down to one simple, clear directive, a red hand symbol that just means stop. It replaces all your frantic calculations with a single command.
That command is what Raz calls an exclusionary reason, and it's a real game changer. It's a special kind of reason that doesn't just get added to your list of pros and cons. Nope, it tells you to throw your list away. It excludes all your other reasons from the process. It basically says, the debate is over. I've got this.
And you see this everywhere. When a client goes to a lawyer to make a will, they don't have to start a philosophical debate about the ideal number of witnesses. Why? Because a group of politicians in a legislature already had that debate for us. The law just gives us the answer. The same goes for traffic laws. By following these exclusionary reasons, we can all coordinate and live together without having to rethink every single choice from scratch every single day. So here's the bottom line. The authority's command has what's called preemptory force. It's a fancy term, but it just means it preempts, it replaces all the other reasons you might have considered. For the whole system to work, that one directive has to be the thing that decides what you do. Now this is where things get really spicy. If the law has to give us these clear, simple commands to be a real authority, what happens when it bumps up against something that is not simple or clear at all, like morality? And this question sets the stage for a massive philosophical showdown between Joseph Raz and another legal giant, Ronald Dworkin.
So check out the debate here. It's fascinating. Imagine a law that says no vehicles in the park. For Raz, for that law to work as an authority, the word vehicle has to be crystal clear. It means cars, trucks, motorcycles, done. But for Dworkin, it's not that simple. He'd say, well, what if a person has a heart attack and an ambulance needs to drive into the park to save them? Dworkin argues a judge must use moral reasoning about the value of human life to figure out what the just answer is.
And this really nails Raz's position perfectly. He would argue that if figuring out what the no vehicles law means requires you to have a huge moral debate about saving lives versus park tranquility, well, then the law has failed as an authority. Its whole job was to settle that debate for you. It's supposed to give you the answer, not send you right back to the original complicated question. So we can see that authority, when it's working right, is this incredible tool that makes our complex society possible. It's a service that helps us make better choices. But, and this is a really big but, this all hinges on the authority actually being a better expert than we are. And that leaves us with one final, crucial question to think about. At what point does trusting an authority stop being a rational choice and start becoming a dangerous shortcut?